Yo, what's up? The next patch comes in about 1 day, so let's go over who you should skip or summon. The current banner that we have right now is going to be Zhou Hong, Gabrielle, and Clara. I've already went through all 3 of them, but in short, Clara is not worth it. She's only being used for Shadow Gale, and Gabrielle is only being used in PvP as the fastest unit in the Yuhime team. They're not worth 100 wish stones at all. The main unit we have right now is going to be Zhou Hong, and after seeing his performance or lack thereof, I have not seen anyone trying him out in Beatbot or Point War. The sad thing about Zhou Hong is that just click on knockout, 0 teams running Zhou Hong. And guess what? This was throughout the entire patch. I think there are some players trying him in knockout, but the team score is too low for them to appear in this section right here. So you don't see any Zhou Hong at all. From the first week he came out, all the way to now, 0 teams. Which means he is officially worse than Beta when Beta was released. The first week Beta was released, there are some R6 Beta teams in knockout. And then week 2 onwards, there's none. But this guy has 0. And Beta currently has use for Sonica Team 1. Zhou Hong does not have any use for PvE and for PvP. So Zhou Hong is a skip, but his R0 might be useful for the next upcoming Esper, which is Lapis. And then in the next patch, the side events, we're gonna get Abigail and Sienna for the first week. Sienna is really good for Shadow Stream. In fact, she is the best in slot as well, because the second skill reduces the cooldown of Wind Espers by 1 turn. You need this one in order to give your Feng Shun the Thunder set, so you don't have to run the Ocean Wave set. Because right now, the best DPS for Shadow Stream is going to be Feng Shun, and without the -1 turn on his S3, you don't have 100% uptime on the Marsh Wind effect. And the good thing is, you don't need any of her resonance. She just needs to be R0. So if you don't have Sienna, it's pretty good to summon for her. But she's not going to be the main priority. Now as for Abigail, she is still pretty decent for PvP. I'm still using Abigail for the Mingxiu team. Again, this team is pretty good for Point War. You can pretty much cleave every single team except for maybe like R2 Meta Yunchuan. I'm also using Abigail in Beatbot as well against this type of Momo teams. You have a pretty good chance of winning, but if there is an R6 Chuyao, you can sometimes lose. This is the team that I'm using right now. The reason why she's pretty good against like Momo teams is because she doesn't have any attacks, so she doesn't get counter attack, and also she has a lot of shield as well, right, with her S2. This team has a pretty good chance against a Momo team, and there we go, we won. But outside of this team, you don't really see much use for Abigail anymore. Her resonance aren't that important except for her R2, but again, you don't really get much value out of Abigail at this point, so she's going to be a skip. Now for week 2 of the next patch, we're gonna get Elif and Osana. Osana is 100% a skip. She doesn't have any use in PvE right now or PvP. But for Elif, you already know it. She's the best DPS for APAP. She's the best DPS for Yinglong. She's the best DPS for Shadow Gale as well. And she's the best DPS for all of the Falsetto Fantasy teams. And it's not just the fact that she's the best DPS for all 3 of these bosses. It's the fact that her team is scoring 200 to 300 million per boss. With that being said, you do need her to be at R6 for her to be useful. Before her R6, she's not really usable, to be honest with you. But she is going to be the #1 priority unit to R6 if you want to do well in PvE. So yeah, 100% summon for her R6 if you do have enough wish stones. Now for the last week of the next patch, you're gonna get Hyde and Mavis. Hyde is 100% a skip. Now as for Mavis, she's still pretty decent for PvP, but she's no longer annoying in PvP. There's a lot of ways for you to deal with Mavis at this point. You have Petros, or you can just bring a Moroyama and Moroyama will target her. It's pretty easy to deal with Mavis at this point. She still does pretty well against like R6 dodgy teams that don't have Petros in them, but outside of that, you don't really see much use for her. So Mavis at this point is going to be a skip. You just need her to be at R0, and it's not worth it to spend 100 wish stones on her, in my opinion. And now for the main event as per for next patch, Lapis. Lapis currently has the highest S3 multiplier in the game. With perfect setup, you can get her S3 upwards of 2000% multiplier. But I have really bad news. In order to do that, you need to stack up her passive, and it is one of the hardest passive to stack up in the game. You only get 1 stack of Absolute Order per AP up buff from an ally, and you need to stack it up 40 times. Now I did say Zhou Hong is going to be a skip, but his R0 is going to help Lapis a lot. Slack Buddy increases the carrier's AP by 25% at the end of their active turn. If you make Lapis the fastest, she will gain 25% AP plus her passive, which is 15%, so 40% AP every single turn she takes. The big problem, turn count. 90% of contents in the game will have turn count, so you don't have enough time to stack up Lapis passive to max. Alright, let me show you how it would work when you run Lapis and Zhou Hong together. Right now I only have Lapis at R2, so she's not getting the additional 15% AP. If you have her at R6, you're gonna stack it up a little bit faster. But check this out, right? Right now I'm at halfway of the buff, and I've already exhausted 30 turns in Forbiter. Let's see how long it takes for you to max out her passive at R2 with a Zhou Hong in your team. Okay, we're almost there. 38 turns, 38 stacks, and 40 stacks. I only had 22 turns left on Forbiter. Again, it takes a really long time for you to stack up her passive. If you're running her in Dark Starlight, you might never get her passive to max out. Now keep in mind, I don't have her Divinate, so she's missing speed up buff. If you do have her at R6 plus her Divinate maxed out, then she will have 100% speed up buff all the time. But that will probably put you at 40 turns left in Forbiter. So again, it takes way too long for her to max out her passive. I also made a pretty crucial mistake in my last video when I compared Brewster's damage to Lapis' damage. I forgot that Liam also gives my Brewster 30% attack. So this, instead of 1.4, it's actually 1.7. And my Brewster actually has 10,000 attack. So this actually brought down Lapis' damage by quite a bit. She's now doing 3 million as opposed to 3.7 million. So 700,000 cut. That being said, I don't think she's gonna be any useful for any of the False to Fantasy bosses, because she takes way too many turns to ramp up her damage. And I'm 100% certain she's not gonna be good in Sonica, because in Sonica, Espers who do single hits gets reduced damage. I think it's like 50%, so she's not gonna do damage in Sonica. As for Ritual Miracle, she's not gonna be good in Fafnir as well, because she is once again single hit. You need multi-hits for Fafnir. For Yinglong, there is a potential that she could be good, but once again you need to ramp up her passive before she does significant damage. Now for Desolate Lands though, in Shadow Stream, you will have unlimited turns for her to ramp up her damage. The standard Shadow Stream team gets about 120 to 150 turns. And now that you have 6 slots, you can run 3 Espers that can give AP up to Lapis. Sienna with her S1, Fengshun with his S3, and Xuanpin with her S1. The team will look like this: Zihi, Sienna, R2 Wenlock, Fengshun, Xuanpin, and Lapis. Now that you have 3 Espers to AP pusher, you can stack up her passive a little bit easier, but I think it's still not going to be better than running Zhou Hong. You might see some runs where she's not maxed out her passive, but it's still going to do pretty decent damage. Or if you have R6 Unas, you can probably remove Wenlock and put R6 Unas right here. That way you can max out her passive consistently. As for PvP, she's also not going to be used, because she is a pure DPS with no debuff immunity, no damage reduction, no cheat death mechanic. She's just going to die. Now someone commented that her R2 could outspeed Tolan, but unfortunately it does not, unless you want to run her in Point War. But in Beatbout or Rival Rune content, she only has 235 speed, 5 from her Ascension. So under a 25% speed lead, you only get to about 312 speed, whereas Tolan gets 333 speed. But if you run her in Point War with your best win set that is above 300 speed, you will be able to outspeed a Tolan that is running the same exact relic speed as you. Yeah, she can outspeed Tolan, but only in Point War, not in Rival Rune content. So for the final verdict on Lapis, for me, it's going to be a skip. I think she's going to be the best DPS for Shadow Stream, but for False to Fantasy, I don't think she's going to work. Because in Forbiter, you need Disease unit, you need Defense Break, you need Seer debuff, you need R2 Wenlock in your team, and you also need an AP push at that. 3 of the slots are already locked, which is Lapis, R2 Wenlock, Zhou Hong, or Unas. And then the other 2 slots, you need to fill Disease debuff, Defense Break, and Seer. Yeah, it's gonna be really tough for her to work in False to Fantasy. But if you want to summon for her for Shadow Stream, R2 is a good place to stop. Even if you want to, you can stop at R1. 10% final damage boost to her S3 that has about 1000 plus. It's like 100% additional damage. Obviously, the basic stats are gonna be very good as well. But keep in mind, in the next patch, we are getting Celestial Anomaly Season 3. And we are guaranteed to get Meta Drew as well. And the meta most likely will change drastically during the Celestial Anomaly, so you want to save your resources for that. I am going to be skipping Lapis, but if you need a Shadow Stream unit, she's a pretty good choice. That's about it. Ciao.